Hey everyone, this will be my video lecture in chameleon values and norms, no? It's CVN. Now, I will remind you people that you should have a copy of this book, Chameleon Values and Norms. Also, the Rules on Grammar, Mastering English Grammar +1. And then Let Us Study Sentences. These are the three books that you will be using in CVN. Now, grammar for us is very important because you need to have excellent verbal or communication skills. No? Why is that? Because we want everyone to be globally competitive so that when you compete for a job in the global market, you may have a very, very good chance. No? Actually, just now I was talking to our faculty member who has been recruited again as an English teacher in Vietnam. No? There are two faculty members, former faculty members, who had just been hired again in a school, by a school there in Vietnam. So we want you people to master also the English grammar or the English language, because that is the way on how you become competitive in the global market. No? Okay, aside from, of course, knowing the values that a professional or a person should possess, you should also have excellent communication skills so that later on when you apply for a job abroad or wherever you want to go to, then your chance to be hired or to be recruited by an employer will be a little bit favorable. Okay? So today, let us continue my discussion still on values. The last time, I have given you the different characteristics of values, and we started with two of the general types. We started with the two general types of values, and these are what we call, the first one will be the terminal values, and the second one is what we call the instrumental values. No, this is just a review. I have discussed this last Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. So here, terminal values. When we talk of these two values, what are terminal values again? Well, when we talk of terminal values, we are talking about your ultimate goals in life. No, ultimate goals in life. Diba? That is what. Now, for instrumental values, what we are talking about will be the personality traits. Personality traits or character of an individual that will at least, you will be able to attain your terminal values. So you possess these personality traits or character that will help you attain what we call terminal values. So we refer this as the means, means to achieve what we call terminal values. Example, for instance, if your terminal value is, of course, to become what? A pilot, for instance. This is your terminal value. A successful pilot, for instance, what are you going to do? Well, of course, one of the personality traits of a pilot is, of course, you have to be adventurous. So this one will be one of your instrumental values. Then hardworking. What else? Of course, you have to be, personality traits would be intelligent also. So these are the instrumental values that you need in order for you to attain your what we call your terminal value. Say for instance, that is your terminal value. You understand now? Now, today, we will be discussing the other types. The other types of values aside from these two values. There are other types or general kinds of values that I will be mentioning today. And of course, we need to discuss them one by one. The first is, let us have it numbered, the third one. We have what we call personal. Diba? Personal values. personal or what we call individual values. What are these? Well, of course, by the term alone personal, these are values that are that a person possesses. No, these are what he regards as important values in his life. Important values in life. Of course, we are talking about a particular person. So, of course, these personal values has something to do with what? The development and protection of the human personality. Protection of the human personality. By the way, all this that I am discussing are, of course, discussed also in the book, no? Chameleon Values. So, when we talk of personal or individual values, we are talking about those values that are very important or desirable by an individual in his life. And specifically, we are referring to what? To the development and protection of the human personality. Example would be, of course, you value honor, diba? You value honesty. You value integrity. These are examples that you would like yourself to have, no? Development and protection of the human personality. Now, the fourth, if we have this personal or individual values, we also have the opposite. Meaning, it's not only values that reside in a person, there are also values which we call social values. Social values. And when we talk of social, we are referring to society. No? So what are these social values? Well, if we are referring to individual values as some values that are personal in nature or that reside in the individual himself, we are talking here with, when we talk of social values, we are talking about solidarity. Solidarity, meaning what solidarity? Unity. Diba? Solidarity in a solidarity of the community. Why is that? Remember that one of the characteristics of values is that these are general guidelines that people share. No, you can share that in terms of being social values. How important are social values? Very important. Why are they important? Well, because it builds what? Social cohesion, unity that we call, diba? Social cohesion. Again, the word cohesion or cohesiveness. No? So these are very important values because they build solidarity of the community. They build solidarity because what? Why do they build solidarity? Because they foster social cohesion. Cohesion is unity. What else? Eliminates conflicts. Diba? Eliminates conflicts because if you share the same values, most likely you will agree. Communication becomes easier. Also, communication becomes a lot easier. Diba? If you share the same values, well, most likely, because it eliminates conflicts, it also fosters better understanding between and among the people. No? You understand each other because you have the same set of values, social values. Okay? So that is the fourth one. No? We go to the fifth kind of value. So we have personal or individual values, we have social values, and then the fifth would be what we call, of course, the fifth is what we call moral or ethical values. Right? Moral or ethical values. Now when we talk of ethics, ethical, this is the standard by which we define or we determine what is right. I'm spelling. Sorry. This is how we define right or wrong. Diba? Evil or good. Diba? Right or wrong, evil or good. What else? How do we define this? Well, something that is, of course, moral or immoral. Diba? So this is how we define certain things. If we talk about ethical values, say for instance, of course, stealing is wrong, so do not do that. No, stealing is wrong. So if you base your set of values saying that stealing is wrong, of course you are using your ethical value system. Or if you say that you are committing adultery meaning may kalaguyok ka, of course you say that this is wrong because you are using your ethical value system. Clear? Basta when we talk of ethical or moral, we are talking about the standard use or that we use to determine what is right or what is wrong, what is evil or what is good, what is moral or immoral. Okay? So we move on to what we call 6 would be aesthetic. No? Aesthetic values. So this is the 6th one. And we call that the aesthetic. Any idea what this means? Aesthetic, or what we call aesthetic values. No? Aesthetic values. Well, the word aesthetic alone, it will denote or it will connote what? It will connote our concept of beauty. So each one of us has his own or her own concept of beauty. What is beautiful to one may not be beautiful to the other, because of course we have of course what I mean by that is that every person has his own standard of beauty or the concept of what we call artistry. No? Artistry. So here, what may be beautiful to one may not be beautiful for the other. No? Some would say that she is beautiful, other persons say no, she's not that beautiful. They are using what we call the aesthetic values. No? Your concept of what is beautiful and what is not beautiful, what you use there, what value system are you going to use? Your concept of aesthetic values. Now, what I am mentioning to you are not actually what I call exclusive. No? When I say it's not exclusive, there are other types of values which I may not mention today, but other books or other authors or other people may have also introduced these types of values. So the first that I mentioned today is what we call instrumental, then terminal values, then we have personal or individual values, and then social values. Then I mentioned to you about moral or ethical values, and then what we discussed just now will be aesthetic values. Now, there is one more type of value which is very, very important for us people, and we call that spiritual or religious values. Now, okay, I will discuss this also. No, spiritual or religious is the 7th type. No, spiritual or religious values. Spiritual. Well, by the term alone, very easy to know. Or religious values. No? When we talk of spiritual, of course, we attribute everything to God. Attributed to God or something that is or the divine. Diba? This came from these are usually known as eternal values that are based on faith. That are based on one's faith. Clear? So I repeat, when we talk of the spiritual or religious values, These are values that are attributed to God Himself or to the divine. These are actually eternal values that are based on faith, one's faith. Clear so far? And of course, we do not know where it came from because these are eternal values. No? Also, it's very easy for us to understand because this kind of values are universal. Universal meaning in nature, they apply whether you are a Filipino, you are an American, you are an Italian, whatever nationality or country you come from, they always have this set of spiritual or religious values. Now, I'm just mentioning to you one by one the different types or kinds of values, no? So that you know that these are the values that are known throughout the world. But I told you that these are not exclusive. The ones that I'm mentioning are not exclusive. So we move on to what we call, what's that, number 8 now? Political values. No? When we speak of political values, what are we talking about? Well, beliefs pertaining to how a government should operate. Diba? That's why we have democracy, diba? Oligarchy, what else? We have communism, we have authoritarianism, etc. These are beliefs pertaining to how a government should operate. Now, even we believe in different political parties, diba? Some would be Nationalista Party, Liberal Party, KBL. These political parties, if you believe in the platform that they are proposing, of course, that will also fall under political values. No? And usually, these values are made as the standards for us to decide whom are the people we are going to vote during election time. Okay? Now, number 9 now is what we call cultural values. No? Number 9 would be what we call cultural values. No? We also have this. And when we talk of cultural values, this came from the word culture. And what is culture? Again, culture would pertain to what? Well, it would pertain to the way of life. No? When we talk of culture, we're talking about the way of life of a certain place or of a certain people. And this way of life, we refer to the objects rather than the people. The objects or institutions that can be found in a certain place or country. No? We are referring to the way of life and we refer to the objects. What are these objects that we're talking about? We're talking about language. No? We're talking about what? Cuisine, yung pagluluto. We're talking about, say for instance, aside from language, cuisine, education, the kind of education that we have. We're talking about the different institutions, no, that are in here. We are talking about media, etc. No? So it's a way of life. Anything that you could find in a certain country or in a certain place, like language, cuisine, these are peculiar to a certain place or country, then we're talking about what we call culture. And this culture, of course, would be reduced into what we call cultural values. And these cultural values are the values that exist in our society in general, no? Cultural. Of course, included here would be religion also, aside from language, media. These are objects that you could find and they are being used in a certain locality. Okay? Cultural values. Then we proceed with the next one. Number 10 is what we call economic values. Economic values. We also have this. And when we talk of economic values, we're talking about what? Wealth generation, no? Wealth generation. How are you going to multiply your money? No? Wealth generation, and also we're talking about aside from wealth generation, we're talking about material growth. No? Material growth. No? Those things that will exist in a certain place. We're talking about logistics. We're talking about resources for material growth. Remember that economic values have something to do with wealth and of course growth. Okay? And wealth or materials that we call material growth would pertain to logistics and resources. No? The things that are present in a certain country or in a certain place, and how we multiply that or how we make that bigger or massive in scope will be what we call your economic values. And that one will also apply from the perspective of an individual, not only society in general, but also individually. And then, aside from that, which is very similar to economic values, we have what we call materials or materials values. Materials values. No? Again, when we talk about this materials, what are we talking about? We are talking about concrete elements that coexist. But we're talking about concrete, meaning specific. Concrete elements that coexist with people. That coexist with people. Well, you cannot live without these materials. Like say for instance, food. These are materials, no? Clothing, shelter, no? What else? Water, etc. So these are, if you value this, all of this, no? We're talking about materials values. Okay? And then we come to the last one, which is the most important. One of the most important values that we hold very dear or very which is important to us or desirable to us. And that one is what we call very simply as family values. Now, these are the beliefs or principles that we hold, principles that we accept and apply within our family, within the family. Now remember, these are beliefs and principles, and this one, the family values that we have, of course, you have to attain that, or you, what we call this, you get that through your formative years. Again, formative years. And of course, you more interact during this time with the members of your family. So you're also being acquainted or you are also being required to embrace the same set of beliefs and principles that your parents also would like you to imbibe in your own life. Okay? So family values, sometimes when we make our decisions, we consult our family and we consult also the values that we have in the family. So when we decide, of course, we take into consideration these family values that we have. Okay? So I think I have given you the different types of values, different kinds of values. It's up to you now to decipher among yourself which are important values which you may need in your life. Now, as your assignment, I do not want to belabor your point. I do not want to delve deeper into this. But what I want from you is to do, no? To do exercise or activity sheet number 1, no, which you could find on pages 14 and 15 in this book, no? So you do activity sheet number 1 in pages or on pages 14 and 15. And also for this book, no, I'd like you to read chapter 1 of this book, because next week I will be starting also my lecture on English grammar, no? So you read chapter 1 of this book, the different parts of speech, and also here in this book, let us study sentences. This book, you need to read, of course, chapter 1 also about the sentence. These are just lessons that you ought to review. I understand that you have taken English already in your senior high school or even during your junior high school. This is just a review, but you need to submit this at the end of the term. Okay? So I make myself clear. Thank you everyone, and good morning.